We begin with breaking news this hour out of the United States, where after nearly 3 months of testimony and more than a week of deliberations, a New York jury has reached a verdict in the trial of infamous Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman. El Chapo, as he is also known, has been found guilty on all counts. He's accused of pocketing nearly $14 billion as the decades-long head of the notorious Sinaloa cartel. Let's go straight to Gabriel Elizondo, who's outside the court in New York. So, Gabe, finally a verdict, and it looks like El Chapo will be facing life in prison.
Yeah, without a doubt, he will be facing life in prison, as a matter of fact, and that's because a 12-person jury here in Brooklyn, New York, outside this federal courthouse, just came back a few minutes ago with this verdict: guilty on all counts. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was facing an 11-count indictment by U.S. federal prosecutors here in New York. The counts, 11-count indictment, ranged from everything from running a criminal organization to drug trafficking to even conspiracy to commit murder. Now, this was a trial that went on for many, many weeks. The jury clearly spent several days deliberating over this very complex case that lasted several weeks, finally came back with this guilty on all counts. We have not heard from Guzman's defense attorneys or from the prosecutors. They have not come out of the courtroom yet. Guzman looked stunned when the jury read their guilty verdict, but this clearly will end what has been a long saga in the life, really, of one of the world's biggest drug traffickers.
A trial that lasted more than 2 months is finally over. Joaquin Guzman Loera, known by his infamous nickname of El Chapo, or Shorty, was charged on 10 criminal counts: drug trafficking, money laundering, and leading a criminal organization, just to name a few. Over the course of the trial, the jury heard the following: tales of Guzman's dramatic escapes from authorities through underground tunnels. Once he escaped naked through a specially built tunnel under a bathtub. That escape, he was with his mistress, who testified in court, while Guzman's wife watched on. They saw pictures of Guzman's diamond-encrusted pistol, and the jury heard stories about him ordering the killings of rivals, including one for the crime of failing to shake Guzman's hand. But it was Guzman's Sinaloa drug cartel that often took center stage at the trial. Several of his former top-level associates testified against him, lifting the lid on a multi-million-dollar smuggling operation that smuggled cocaine into the U.S. through tunnels, in jalapeno pepper cans, and even in bananas. And there were allegations of political corruption at the highest levels. Former Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto was accused of receiving a $100 million bribe from Guzman. Peña Nieto denied it. According to organized crime experts, the trial has done nothing to curtail the activities of Guzman's Sinaloa cartel.
9 out of 10 politicians are funding their political campaign through dirty money right now, through surveys that we have conducted by interviewing politicians. So the Sinaloa criminal network was the most powerful, the most effective network, still is, in capturing the political system in Mexico. And that network is intact, has not been touched, regardless if Guzman Loera is in jail.
Guzman's defense attorneys wanted to pivot the trial away from their client's alleged wrongdoing to focus on official corruption. But the judge blocked their efforts, leaving the defense with few options other than to argue El Chapo Guzman was being set up as the fall guy.
Now, even if Guzman was found guilty of one of the 10 counts against him, it would have been a mandatory minimum sentence of life in prison. He was found guilty on all 10. So Guzman will never be a free man again. Now, the prosecution put on a very extensive case that lasted several weeks. They called 56 witnesses. There were hundreds of photos, recordings, exhibits that they put in front of the jury over the course of this trial. The defense, on the other hand, just put up a 30-minute defense and called only one witness. The defense was basically arguing that they wanted this to be a trial about government corruption in Mexico. They were saying El Chapo Guzman was basically set up, and it was clearly the jury did not buy that even at all. Now, That's probably why this jury took several days to come to this ruling, because even though there was so much evidence against Guzman, they had a long list of charges against him, and they had to go through each and every one of them. So that's the latest from here outside the federal courthouse in Brooklyn. We expect to hear from the defense attorneys and the prosecution here in the next few minutes.
Thank you very much for that. Gabriel Elizondo reporting there live from New York.